23 that caused them to miss a combined 13 games. CC, are you concerned long-term for Burrow's career?
Yeah, I'm concerned about it, and I was concerned before this latest injury. I said it last year. What stops Joe Burrow from being the latest in a long line of Cincinnati Bengals quarterbacks that have MVP talent, but don't allow that talent to translate into team success at the highest level? We saw it with Ken Anderson, won an MVP, got to a Super Bowl, never got back. Boomer Esiason, won an MVP, got to a Super Bowl, never got back. Carson Palmer had to retire because the organization wouldn't put the requisite pieces around him so that he could have success. Ultimately ended up getting traded.
Dan Marino never got back.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, with the Cincinnati Bengals organization, with the Brown family, they have a history of this. So when we see Joe Burrow, who started his career in his rookie season getting cut in half because the offensive line couldn't protect him, why would we think that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to manage him and going to protect him in a way that they have never done with all the other quarterbacks that have come through their organization that have MVP caliber talent? I just don't see it. So yeah, I'm concerned about Joe Burrow's career because of the organization that he's a part of.
I 100% agree with you. I'm more concerned in the near future of if he's going to want to be in Cincinnati. I think that's going to come into question, and whether it's going, like, we know how good Joe Burrow is when he playing quarterback.
Right.
But I still believe, like, there's things that can happen over the course of a guy's career that can turn them off to an organization. The other thing too, CC, and I talked about this from a football standpoint, Stephen A. So sit back and learn something while me and CC talk.
You don't have to be rude about it. I learn from y'all all the time. You don't have to be rude. You already gave me a D for the A-list, man.
I'm just saying.
Stop starting trouble.
You do so many things great. At times when I can get you, I need to get you. All right. CC, I'm concerned about what Zach Taylor and this coaching staff and this organizational philosophy offensively has continued to do as well. I asked Jason Kelce last night, I said, be honest with me about how hard it is to play O-line in Cincinnati in today's NFL. You know, rushers are faster, defenses blitz more, people pressure quarterbacks, and they stand in shotgun 90% of the game. And it's no coincidence that your quarterback then missed half of his damn career with your organization because you've refused to do something different to protect him from that aspect. And I don't think enough people are having a conversation about that. We are no longer in the NFL where you're going to stay in your quarterback in shotgun and tell him to throw the ball 45, 50 times a game and expect to have him for the majority of the season. It's not going to happen anymore. Not when you play Myles Garrett twice, not when you play the Baltimore Ravens twice, not when you play the Steelers. That's not going to happen. So this is another interesting situation from an injury standpoint that everybody looks to Joe Burrow and say, oh, okay, now we got to start having an injury-prone conversation. Now we got to start having the direction of the organization and the program. There should have been a conversation about how we play football offensively, starting 2 years ago in Cincinnati. And from my limited understanding, because I'm around a lot of good offensive-minded people, I've always said, why don't they run the ball more, right? That's been my answer to it. I'm looking at Greg Roman in Los Angeles. Formation diversity, dudes at the line of scrimmage. I'm looking at the Baltimore Ravens. I'm looking at you mentioned it when you was talking about your top five, Stephen A. I'm looking at the Buffalo Bills change their offensive identity completely. And become real contenders in the NFL. The Cincinnati Bengals play football with their franchise quarterback the same way they played football 5 years ago when he got there. And his ass been hurt for 3 of them 5 seasons, and you continue to roll out there and do the same thing over and over again. That is my biggest issue with Cincinnati.
Offensive line 4, Burrow's 5 full seasons in Cincinnati. They finish in the bottom 5. Pro Football Focus grading. Bottom 5 in the National Football League. Like you pointed out, 3 seasons, 3 times in his career, 3 seasons. He's already had season-ending injuries in 2020 and 2023.
Come on,
man. And this may very well be the 3rd time he's had a season-ending injury. So clearly that's the case. But I will say this. Here's what I will push back on you. When we talk about him potentially not wanting to be there, he'd have a strong case if they didn't sign Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson.
True.
When you go and you ask the organization to do that, and they do it, Listen, Joe Burrow is the one behind center. Joe Burrow is the quarterback. Joe Burrow is the face of the franchise. Joe Burrow is the Ohio native. Joe Burrow is the guy that specifically asked for what he wanted, and they gave it to him. How come you didn't ask for a better offensive line? How come that wasn't the priority over taking care of a T. Higgins or a Trey Hendrickson? We understand Jamar Chase. That dude is just on another level. But T. Higgins and and Trey Hendrickson, you could have said, yo, I need you to buffer this offensive line. True. You could have said, I also need you to buffer the running game to make sure you taking some of that pressure off of me. You still give me Jamar Chase. You prioritize the offensive line, and maybe, just maybe, I'm not going through this right now. So he had an opportunity as somebody who's been in the league long enough, who's fully aware of what's needed to go out there and ask for what he wanted. And he chose the receivers and somebody on the defensive side of the ball. 35 sacks, 4.5 more than anybody else over the last 2 years of Trey Hendrickson. That's true. But the flip side to it is that, that ain't gonna help you but so much if you don't have an offensive line to protect you. And he might have prioritized the wrong thing. That's why I don't think he can just skip out and run.
Yeah, I can't give you everything you asked for, and then you get mad at me it doesn't work out and you want to bounce. You can't take your ball and go home. Don't pull an Aaron Rodgers, what he did with the New York Jets. But to your point about the shotgun, that's a real thing. I mean, only the Washington Commanders over the last 2 years of football have spent more time in the shotgun than the Cincinnati Bengals. How's that working out for their quarterback right now? Not great, right? And you don't need an offensive expert to understand the defensive guys. When you got 11 sets of eyeballs that can see the ball at all times without the threat of play action, you're not fooled by anything that the offense is doing. And the defensive line is not afraid of hard ball runs because you're not in a formation to do those things. So you're putting your quarterback in harm's way.
There you go, CC.
Because your offense doesn't have enough variety, doesn't have enough ways to threaten the defense on a down-to-down basis based on the scheme. Sure, they've got talent. They've got plenty of guys that can dictate front and coverage. But in terms of the coordinator, the play caller, putting it all together and orchestrating it to protect the quarterback while maximizing explosive plays, that is not something that Zach Taylor and his staff have done a good job at.
Go ahead, man.
I want everybody, because I know the answer, you know the answer. I want everybody to go back and look at the amount, last 2 years with Joe Brady. And I'm using the Bills because they made a significant change in philosophy for Josh Allen. Josh Allen throws the ball less, runs the ball less than he did all of his previous years in the last.
Well, it helps that they got James Cook.
Hold on, but give me a second. Give me a second, Stephen A. Philosophically, they changed and he won the MVP last year. With throwing less and being in the shotgun less and using Superman attributes less. And his turnovers turned down. Both. So it can't happen, because I know what people gonna say. This how the conversation happens with me and CC. Man, Joe Burrow throw for 5,000 yards. He got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Why wouldn't they be in shotgun? Because he always on the sideline in a booth. And he always unavailable for games. Philosophically, they gonna have to change, or he gonna have to get his ass out of there. Or the head coach is gonna have to be fired.
Well, you know how I felt about that.
I know.
I'm talking.
They might change philosophy.
This is the first time they've been ready for the first 2 weeks of the season, 7 damn years.
Yeah.
Practically once in like 7 damn years they've been that way. But with that being said, before we go to break, let me ask y'all this question. Are we just ruling out any possibility with Jake Brown and coaching, quarterback in the team, the weapons that they had to make the playoffs?
Yes, I'm ruling it out. This is not 2 years ago when Jake Brown stepped in and led them to a winning record.